Everyone, welcome to another episode of The Internet Needs to Calm the Hell Down about games. Uh, we uh, we host this podcast. Well, we try to do it every week. It's been a couple weeks, so if you're with us, thanks for watching. Um, I'm Kevin. My boy over here is Agasicles, and we come on this show. We try to do it on a weekly basis to talk about games, what's going on in the gaming world, what games we've been playing, what games we've played in the past, and then we usually cover a little bit of the drama that's going on in the gaming realm. With that being said, I have to ask, how are you, man? How's your week been? I know it's been a couple weeks since we had a podcast. I had a ton of shit come up on my end with work, so we had to skip the last couple weeks. But I have had a little bit of time to play some games, and I'm hoping you have too.
Yeah, man, it's all been good. No worries. I had stuff to do too, so it
Good,
all
good,
works
good,
out.
good, good. Yeah, yeah. No, you know that's life. We got a bunch of new people on board, but they're not quite ready to take the on-call role yet. So we have a shortage there, and a bunch of shit broke. And yeah, as much as I'd love to say, sorry, hospital, I have a very important podcast to do. I do need to pay my mortgage. So that's been my last 2 weeks. But finally got to relax a little bit and come back to this, which I enjoy. And I kicked the dogs and the wife out of the office, and I am ready, man. I am ready. Um, all right, and we
Yeah, cool,
have
man. Well, let's do this.
yeah, 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 we have our agenda up here, and I guess I'll take it away since I'm hosting this week. I did get a chance to play some games, um, along with actually setting up a new PC. So I'm going to be able to play some of the new games on PC once again. Got myself a nice little 3070 rig, um, Ryzen 3700. So I mean, I'm ready. I'm ready for some PC games, but this is just this week. So this is a new revelation. Finally updated my old machines. A couple weeks ago, I did end up playing the medium, which I kind of told you I was playing, but I did finish it. And I enjoyed the game
Hold,
for what it
I,
was.
I, I gotta
I'm
stop
not
you.
going to spend.
I gotta stop
Oh,
you right
whoa,
here.
whoa,
Hold on a second. So I'm looking
whoa,
at
whoa,
your
whoa.
I'm looking at your list.
Yeah, yeah.
Now you have a brand new gaming PC
I do.
with one of
I
the
do.
rarely found in the wild 3000
I
series
know.
GTX cards,
I know. I know. I know. I
and
know what you're gonna
everything
say.
that you played was on
I know.
console.
I know. I know. I told you I didn't. I basically set this thing up. So all right. So the story, the real quick TLDR is, I found a PC on Best Buy for my wife, and she really wanted to play fucking Ark. Okay, I told you about her addiction with Ark, right? So she loves Ark. So I bought the PC for her, and hers was a 3060 based Intel rig, and plenty to play Ark on, And I think that was like $1,300. The only way to get these video cards is with these pre-builts. It was like a Cyber Power, and I bought it, and then I'm like, oh shit. I found a 3070 for $100 more, cyber power again, bigger hard drive, 3070, and it was $100 more. So I bought that one too, and I sat on them both. I'm like, I'll probably just keep one. So my wife's like, hey, I looked at the bank account, everything's cool, everything's kosher. Why don't you just keep the other one for yourself? So I ended up replacing both of them, and I got them all up and running. Shit, man, probably this weekend, really.
so
And that's how that goes.
So you were able to bump to a 3070 for only $100 more than the 3060?
Yes, yes,
That's
but
smoking sweet.
I know these things were they were coming in and out of stock. So the 3060 one I got as a delivery, and then it went out of stock. It was gone. So I'm like, yeah, all right, that's fine. I got her a PC. I got my 1080. It works fine. And a console game, no big deal. Then the 3070 came in stock, but it was weird because it was in stock, but it was only available to ship to the store, to pick up at the store. And I'm like, oh, this is gonna get canceled, man. This is not gonna happen. This is weird. No, it didn't get canceled. It was there. I don't know why they couldn't ship it directly to me, but I
Yeah,
picked it
that's
up in the store.
so. I've been doing some shopping at Best Buy recently as well over the last few weeks. Just not gaming PCs, but just refreshing my tablets.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I think you just got hit with it wasn't in stock in a Best Buy warehouse somewhere, but they had a unit at a nearby store, but not at your store, the one you went to pick up at. So they just
Right.
sent it over. So I'm shopping for a Galaxy Tab S7 now, and that's certain parts of like the keyboard's not actually the unit I want in the color that I want is not at the store. Also, isn't available to be shipped, but is at a nearby store. So I think it's just this realm that we're living in with
It's a weird like logistics thing
with
too. Because
supply
sometimes
shortages.
I have a store like 30 miles out, and I believe if they have it at that store, they say, fuck you, go get it
Right,
at that
right,
store. If it's not at that store and it's out farther, then they can ship it to your store. It's very odd because
yeah,
sometimes they just tell me, hey man, go to the next town over,
right,
it's over
right.
there.
And so
So
you live the life of those component shortages. So last year I had I think I may have mentioned on the show or not, but I had like a short in a case. So I bought a couple. In normal cases, I would have just bought a new power supply. But literally, the way supply shortages were last year, you couldn't get just a new power supply. I guess technically I could have, but the place I was ordering from, I was like, well, they'll build like the crappiest part of the physical build for me is getting the power supply in the case, weaving those stinking rigid cables up
yeah,
to
yeah,
the motherboard, and then seating the CPU, and getting the big honking aftermarket CPU cooler on it. And I'm like, look,
yes,
if I could just pay somebody to do that, right,
uh-huh,
and all I have to do is just slot my cards and RAM and stuff in, I'm okay with that. I've built like probably over
oh
like
yeah,
60 something PCs at this point. I'm like, I don't have
yep.
anything to prove by doing PC builds.
I
So,
know, I
but
know, and this is my first ever pre-built, and I've built every PC I've ever owned. I've built PCs for companies. I mean, I've just built hundreds of computers. So like you, I was like, whatever.
yeah,
So the cool thing is,
we ain't got to do it no more,
yeah,
man.
nah, man,
We've
it's too
arrived. We don't have to do that
too
anymore.
too low brow for me, dude. But the PCs are nice. CyberPower builds a basic PC. I mean, it looks like I built it, and that's nice. And they add a few little extras like LED controllers and shit like that to make it a little fancier. Something I wouldn't have done myself, and I'm glad I found a button on how to shut it off because I'm not all about that life. But RGB is proven to give you more FPS. So I know that's why they put it in there.
Straight in line with the controversies we're going to talk about tonight is people being ridiculous.
I know, I know, I know, I know. Back to my peasant console gaming. The medium was good. I finished it. I will never play it again. I will play a sequel. That's my basic gist on the medium. I liked it enough that I'm open for a sequel. I don't think I'd replay it. It definitely screams like double A, game, and that's fine. And it is what it is. I think people in the Silent Hill Resident Evil realm will like it a lot. Um, and then I was super excited because I pre-ordered Little Nightmares 2, and Little Nightmares was a surprise hit for me. I pre-ordered the original just based off of kind of the art style, and the price was pretty cheap. It was like $30. And I'm like, all right, I like these kinds of short games in creepy worlds. I really enjoyed Little Nightmares OG. And so I'm like, all right, Little Nightmares 2, here we go. I wasn't able to get a collector's edition, so I just got, the normal pre-order. I'm not done with the game yet. But it seems to hit all the right notes. I don't know how it's reviewed. I've been busy as shit. But I've played. I think I'm probably about halfway through Little Nightmares 2, and
so,
they've
so
go ahead.
we talk about this pretty often, but every once in a while.
Yep.
But so how is that shift? Because sometimes there are times where I feel like if I play a string of shooters in a row, right, or I play games in the same genre in a row, like it's easy to shift from like a flight sim to a space sim, right, or driving in whatever. But But here you were playing a survival horror game, right?
Yes.
And sometimes this is good too. Sometimes it's good, like when I had buddies who like kind of forced me to play Outlast. I was like, I need a palate cleanser after all that stress and anxiety, right? I just need something like
Yes,
chill,
that is stressful.
right? So was that kind of the effect that you got by shifting from the medium to Little Nightmares, or was it different?
All right, so you haven't played Little Nightmares. I don't think you have because I think it's giving me more anxiety than the medium. All right, it might sound cute, but it's fucking terrifying, and it's terrifying in think of Tim Burton, okay, and think of maybe taking some mushrooms and watching Tim Burton, and that's what you get with Little Nightmares.
So I want to mention in the chat we have Roguelite Pack who joined in. Thank you very much for swinging through the live stream and the podcast. We appreciate that. So first of all, just to go back so I can clear all this out at once. He mentioned when we were talking about PCs, damn, you guys make me want to buy a PC. Haha, it's just not for me. Console convenience for my pleb bootay. Power to you guys, bruh. We know the feeling. I know that. I mean, we're joking. We play on our PCs, but I mean, there's definitely nights where like, yeah, man, I don't want to download another freaking .NET pack upgrade and monkey with drivers and all that stuff. So yeah, we definitely love chilling out on our consoles. I've been playing the Xbox Series S, and every day I look at it. I love the little white box. It fits very neatly on my console, and I look at it and I'm like, man, I've just always been theorizing that the Series S would like tap out for me, and I'd be like, I'd feel compelled as a hardware guy to go get a Series X, but I'm like, why do I need to? But he also mentioned on this game, you're gonna get your mind blown by the end. So I think he's already played.
Oh wow, so he's already finished it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's very long.
Yeah, and then he said, Little Nightmares 1 and 2, mentions that they are incredible games, and he jokes about our PC misery installing shaders.
Yeah, it's true. I do have RGB on my PC now though, so I'm just gonna throw the Series X and the PS5 away because I never wanna play below 60 FPS ever again. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. I haven't played on the PC much. As the joke is, I actually ended up installing a bunch of old MMOs that I haven't touched in years on my brand new 3070 because now I can run them at like 700 frames a second. But Little Nightmares 2 is actually fantastic. If you liked 1, I believe you will most certainly like 2. They added a bunch of things that are kind of shocking in it, and I don't want to give anything away. But even within the first hour, you're like, holy fuck, this has turned into even a more adult, game than the previous one. So
Right.
if that says anything.
Now, is this a 2D side scroller?
It is a 2D side scroller, but it has that depth in there, right? So I mean, it is still technically 2D, um, but it's they're 3D character models and 3D in environmentals. But yeah, no, it's a 2D. I didn't think I'd like the first one, and it's creepy as shit. And then the second one still retains that creepiness and adds a little more interactivity. Like you get to do more things. First one was just kind of like you need to survive. You can run and jump type of thing. Here you can interact with the environment more. But $30 seems like a great price for this type of game. It's got a low entry, and if you like that kind of Coraline, Tim Burton weirdness, which I don't like, so this challenges me, and I like that I can do it. I don't play it all at once. I play it in short bursts, maybe an hour here, an hour there. It'll probably last me another week or so. And then maybe they'll have some DLC like they did on the first one. But again, if you're into being kind of creeped out, it's a good investment.
So I'm gonna do just a really quick leap ahead because you didn't have anything in the controversy section just yet, but
Yeah, no, yeah.
I'm talking about something that you said just now that relates to something that you also said on Twitter these past few days, and someone had posted something about some Nintendo remake for $60 and complaining about
Yes.
people complaining about the price. And you mentioned, kind of what's in line with my philosophy, which is like, look, the simple fact of the matter is that other games required more effort, right? More people, bigger budget, and yet it's the same price, right? And so you just mentioned, hey, $30 for Little Nightmares 2 feels right. Would you have had a problem paying $60 for something like a Little Nightmares 2? I mean, what's kind of your general? Do you like if a game comes out like that, and like if you enjoy Nintendo games and a game in a remake that has the graphical upgrade or the generational upgrade to a new system, and it comes out at $60, like you may as well go into a coma, right? If you're going to sit around and wait for that game to go on discount, because it's not going to go on disc. It's a Nintendo game. It's not going to go on discount until like Black Friday. So it's going to sit at $60.
And then it'll be $45.99 on Black Friday, and that's it.
Exactly. If you're lucky. So, I mean, so this game was on Xbox. I mean, just talk to me a little bit about that. Do you feel like prices are more equitable on other platforms, or
there's that Nintendo tax that has existed forever, and I don't know how they do it. I don't know that it's going to last forever. But this game being that pricey, I think I would have paid full price for the original Little Nightmares, not knowing what it was before going in. But it intrigued me even more that it was lower priced. And I feel like because of the content and because they were experimenting, they it was a new IP to them, right? I mean, it was something different, and I think they just played it cautious and released it at that price. Now, Little Nightmares 2 to me almost deserves more than that $30 price tag. I feel like I'm getting a value for that. Knowing how good Little Nightmares 1 was, I would have gladly paid double that for Little Nightmares 2. However, I think they would have been in a shitstorm had they priced it at $59 because the first one was $29. So you kind of put yourself in that pinch, I think, in pricing. Pricing is very, very volatile, right? It's a very I'm sure there's research that goes into this that's beyond any capacity of mine. But I think you can't just price something one way and then all of a sudden go up higher. I think you can always go lower, but going up higher hurts. And Sony's got some backlash on going up higher, but Nintendo's just stuck it at 60. And I thought my comment, it seemed silly for people to just completely ignore the fact that this is it's just a remaster. The Wind Waker was what it was, right? And you can't compare those two. You can't compare the grind that goes into new assets, new IP, new story versus our remaster. Remasters can be well done. They can add a little something to the experience. They can, provide be a discovery tool for people that hadn't played the original. But it's not a new game. It's not.
Right. So Roguelite Pack in the chat says, I would balk at Little Nightmares for $60. It's short, but distilled masterfully. It warrants its $30 price tag. Yeah, and I struggle a lot with that argument, right? Because of course, and we're going to talk, our controversy tonight is a lot about people jumping in front, right? Like I sometimes talk about, like running in front to defend that brand, right? That makes billions of dollars and could care less about you. It's the whole thing is just so weird because of the world we live in, right? Where my job at the end of the day is to assign some value to software, right? And so, in my world, in my paradigm, that relates to metrics, like things like lines of code, like level of effort, like, productivity, sheer numbers of hours spent by staff coding an app, right? Means in that money needing to be recuperated. So I understand the model that's behind the pricing, that drives the cost, because cost and price are two different things. And that it's just amazing, as much as we try, and I've tried on other podcasts, and right, all these efforts that go into like trying to educate and teach people about things like that, and just, I get it. Entertainment's a little kind of sort of different, right? But are you going to spend $30 to go see the Avengers Endgame, or is there a feeling that that movie ticket price should be somewhat commensurate with other movies, right? Like it's just weird to me that in the rush to defend the brand that people just ignore and sometimes become very very toxic about trying to defend that $60 price tag for a thing that, just from a software perspective, I'm just going to tell you, didn't require the same level of effort, right, as a new game with a new IP, right? Great Scott, Forza Horizon 4, right? Forza 7, right? Millions of dollars of budget of people going out and camping out in, London, like taking pictures of the skyline and yada, yada, yada. Destiny 2, right? And so on and so forth. Doesn't those things take more effort, right, than another, some of these other games that people jump in front to defend. So
it's mental gymnastics, man. It's mental gymnastics. I don't understand it. There's fact and there's fiction. And if you just came out and said, I love Mario and Zelda and Nintendo so much that I will gladly lick Nintendo's butthole for the eternity of my existence on this planet, I'd be totally okay with that. I'm like, that's cool. You like Nintendo butthole? That's you. Like, I love you too. Let's play Nintendo games. But these people play, like, I've seen. There was another argument where it's like, but they remastered it and now it's 60 frames a second. And how the fuck is that a feature? What? That's because it's on the Switch and they uncapped that shit from the previous. What? Like, can you imagine if that same shit came on PC games? Like, oh hey, we're now gonna let you run this shit at 60 frames a second. Give us more money.
Yeah, for the past few years, like we have been getting free upgrades. Right, we always get free upgrades to the next resolution. Right, so when 4K came along, your games on Steam just updated. There was no cost or charge associated with them. They just popped up. I was surprised that developers went in and added HDR on some games at no cost. So, yeah, I completely agree with you. Right, exactly. Like, true up. That's all we're asking. Just true up. Just make it all rational and logic. Look, if you love a thing, just say you're willing to go pay money for a thing.
That's fine.
This is the argument I had with Miles Morales. Stop jumping in front of the brand and trying to defend Miles Morales. It's not a full game, right?
No.
But if you
I bought it because I really like Spider-Man.
I bought it too. But I still argued the financial perspective of that game doesn't cost as much and it's not the same amount of level of effort, right? Great, Scott. It's a PS5 game. It's an upgraded next generation. Great. Insomniac is a first-party studio. They had a dev kit. Should have had a dev kit before everyone else, right? Like the fact that it's a next gen. Okay, fine. But the point is, like, if you love a thing, like you said, just admit that you love a thing. Admit that you're willing to pay for a thing. Look. When Corvettes are incredibly supply constrained, right? They demand a higher price above the cost, right, of a Corvette. When the iPhone is in short supply in the early years when people loved that thing, people stood in line. People paid extra money. That's fine when you're willing to pay, significantly greater price over the cost. But you cannot argue. Cost is a fact. You cannot argue about cost, right? I mean, so when the cost of a thing is less than the cost of another thing, it just is, right?
Right. No, yeah, and the cost of a remaster is always going to be less than a cost, of an original game.
Yeah. A couple comments in chat. So, Elitario17, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Mentioned that he is here. He or she came here from KMed. Also, awesome. Dr. Mo is in the chat. Can we get a round of applause for Dr. Mo? Mentioned that he will lick Nintendo's butthole for a Metroid Prime remaster.
He's up in there. He's way up in there. He licks it and then he lets it sit on the shelf because he doesn't fucking play his Switch at all. So.
And then Elitario gave us a follow, so we very much appreciate that so much. And Mokewama says, I'm going to say it like Denzel says it. He says, my man.
So, all right. So, Little Nightmares, fantastic. I'm having fun playing it, And along with, I actually played the demo of Little Nightmares first, and that totally convinced me to get the game. Along with that demo, right around that same time, came the Maiden demo, the Resident Evil Maiden demo, which I don't think Mo in chat has played because he's a big pussy, but it was terrifying, and it was also sexy in weird ways, and made me feel oddness for vampire
She's a big
women with claws.
she's a big girl, right?
She's a
Not
big
big,
girl. Like she's
not big bone, but
tall.
really tall. Yeah.
Yeah, she's pretty tall, and yeah, she was packing. And I enjoyed that demo, but I'm a sucker for Resident Evil, and I honestly think that I have enjoyed the current gen Resident Evils with first person much more than I enjoyed probably 4, 5, and 6. 4 I like. Maybe 5 and 6 really just kind of bored me to death. Um, but that demo was how a demo should be made, and the Little Nightmares demo was also a good demo. And I'm glad, just on the topic, real quick, of demos, I'm glad to see some demos coming out again. Because demos are kind of like a long lost art. I remember all the shareware demos back in the day. Um, and I kind of miss that. I love demos. I think they're a great way to get somebody kind of hyped out for a game. So uh, check out the Resident Evil demo if you haven't. I'm sure that'll make you hyped out for the game. These demos completely work for me. I'm a sucker for demos. So I posed that question to you along with taking it away with your played list. But how do you feel about demos? Do they do anything for you? Do they? I've heard arguments that people just don't like them because they kind of spoil the game. How do you feel?
Yeah, so real quick, I'm going to get caught up in chat real quick. So I think the joke that you made about Dr. Mo, he said nonsense. Then he was asking about what demo you were talking about. I think we pointed out that it was the Village demo. He says, yeah, I'm working my way there. Roguelike Pack also joined in and said, need more demos, maybe. Now, look, I'm going to say to everyone, now I think I'm a little unusual. Like, I don't personally get a lot out of demos. I feel that demos should exist. Look, I come from the days of when like the little CD used to be included in like you would pay extra money for the CD version of PC Gamer, right? So like it would be like another $2 above, $3 or whatever above the cover price of like a regular issue, and I would get those demos and I would bring them home and then I would play them, and I would feel bad, I would feel guilty if I paid for the CD version of the magazine and didn't play the demo because I'm like, you paid for the CD. That and I find, and I talked often from a business analysis perspective of the increased value of demos that I felt on the Xbox platform back in the Xbox 360 days. So I felt like it was huge that on Xbox Live, right, that you could buy a demo. I felt that it was very huge that you could buy, before we went entirely over to the free-to-play model. Really kind of some of the early days in console were there on the Xbox 360 platform because games would release and you would pull them down, and they wouldn't be the full version of the game. They were essentially demos, but you could play them and then you could pay, right, for the full version of the game or to unlock whatever the next few levels. So I think I'm glad that they exist. I think they're great for some people. For me, time-wise, I just have so huge of a backlog that I'm just like, look, when the game comes out, if the game reviews well, then I'll play it. Like, I don't need to play the demo, just because at this age, after, playing games for 20, 30, 40 years, I just kind of, what the mechanics are going to be, what genre it's going to be in. Now...
God, you were so old, man. You were so old.
Right. Now, that is not to entirely say that I won't play early access, right, or a preview game. Depending on if it's a game squarely in my wheelhouse and in my particular genre likes, and it's early access, and I do want to get in on the ground floor, but it needs to be fairly refined. I'm not like a day one kind of person, but like if I'm hype about something and it drops and it's in early access, I will play it. So let's see, a couple other things in chat. Mo gave Roguelite a shout out. Yeah, they're calling names. We'll leave those things alone. Are you good? Are you ready for me to roll on to my?
Yeah, man. Yeah. What have you been up to? What have you been playing?
So current gaming ops. And I probably do this. I particularly do this a lot. So I'm out of live streaming now, but generally, when that was my main shtick, kind of my new season would kick off kind of in the November timeframe. And so I would typically spend December, January, February doing a lot of shuffling around and kind of soul searching and thinking about, what was I going to play for the coming year, the season. And so I've been doing a little bit of that still, just in terms of the games that I had loaded on my different systems. I wound up not being super happy about that. I spent some time with my PCs last year, kind of grooming them to a point where I had certain systems with certain monitors had certain games on them. So I had games that I wanted to play on my 27-inch 165 hertz monitors, and shooters on my 1080p high refresh rate monitors and things like that. I kind of tore a lot of that down and just kind of wiped all the games off the systems and all the consoles, and kind of rebuilt them. I think I got Kickstarter to do that because I was on my Nintendo Switch playing Fire Emblem Three Kingdoms, and at the tail end of last year, I kind of went onto my Nintendo Switch and kind of wiped everything out because I just hadn't been playing a lot and tried to strip it down to bare bones. So I've been doing a lot of just kind of reconfiguring games in the studio. What I wound up spending some time playing over the weekend as I was doing uninstalls and reinstalls, I wound up putting Forza Horizon 4 and F1 2019 on a PC and spent some time playing those. So, and if by this time, I'm going to learn this lesson. I think I've finally taken this lesson on board. If you're going to go and reload, great Scott, please get us Forza 8, or Forza Horizon 5, whatever's coming next. I guess it's Forza 8. Because, 2 or 3 years after a Forza game releases, when you need to do a fresh reinstall of that thing, and it has, 99 months of stinking car packs to load, that's a chore. Clear out an afternoon for that, because you're going to spend the whole time doing that. But I got Forza Horizon 4 installed. I put it on a system. I put it on one of my systems running an AMD Radeon 5700 XT on a 144 hertz 27-inch monitor. So I turned the frame reporting on the monitor and ran some benchmarks. Runs wonderfully. Lots of time it's spent at 144 frames per second.
Nice.
A lot of times, it generally stuck between mid 120s, 125 to 144, which is really impressive for Forza Horizon 4 to me. So had all the bells and whistles on. Game looked great.
Nice.
Now up above level 100, which is what I'm at in that game now. You're really kind of searching and digging for things to do, and I'm a kind of a straight stick racing guy. I often talk, I'm not a super huge fan of the Gran Turismo series because in the last couple of iterations they have made these really overly convoluted career modes. They've stuck weird, goofy challenges, and I'm like, look, as I always say about racing games, just give me 100 tracks, right? Start me off with 20, make me unlock the rest. Right, and give me 200 cars, right? That's all I need. I don't need all these goofy modes. I don't need the drift challenge and all this crap. I just need a bunch of races, right? That's all I need. And so, but with Forza Horizon 4 up above level 100 now, the issue is that I am at that point where I gotta kind of like I started doing with Call of Duty. I gotta look at what are the daily challenges and what are because there's not necessarily enough in kind of that core career mode. To necessarily keep me engaged, and I need to start knocking things down. There are car unlocks and things that you have to achieve, or certain unlocks you have to achieve by doing certain challenges. So I've been focusing a little bit more on those, but still at the end of the day, still sticking to the core, right? Unlocking cars, going out into the world and finding everybody who's made these designer skins and stuff for cars, spending time in the auction. It's just really super impressive that. And I can't remember when Forza Horizon 4 was, 2017, maybe? Mm-hmm. That game has legs, right? And, you could, in a lot of ways, even I have complained a little bit about, when you've had, how prolific the Forza and Forza Horizon series are. I always compare them to Gran Turismo. People always ask me about, well, what about Gran Turismo? Are you looking forward to that? I'm like, man, Polyphony puts out a game whenever they flip and feel like it, right? There's no schedule. I find it flabbergasting that studio just does apparently whatever the hell it is that they want to do, right? And nobody holds their feet to the fire. Dozens of Sony first-party studios have been shuttered, right, in years, and in the meantime,
somebody's on the board somewhere.
Like, or somebody's nephew or something, like, you know, we put out like 8 versions of Forza, and there's been like 2 like iterations of Gran Turismo, and they haven't been great games. It would be different if Gran Turismo came out and it was just completely superior to Forza, but it's not. I mean, in my opinion. So I don't know. So I had a lot of fun playing Forza Horizon 4. Still get a kick out of, you know, the changing seasons in the UK. While loading one of my other systems, I actually found out, you know, there was the whole thing, I think last year, that Forza Horizon 3 was going off the store, and you wouldn't be able to buy it, blah, blah, blah. It turns out, if you own that game, and it's in your collection, you know, the Game Pass app now, when you go in now, I guess it's been there before, but I never use it. It has a My Collection tab in it, so actually on PC, there's now a method to go into that Xbox app and see all of the games that you own. And if you own Forza Horizon 3, it shows up there, and you can just hit it and download it.
Oh, nice.
So I actually downloaded it onto a laptop that runs like a 1050, GTX 1050. The other thing I spent time playing was F1 2019. And so, strangely enough, F1 2019 and F1 2020, they actually are, you know, reviewed best on Xbox. And so for the last couple of years, whereas I've played that series always normally on PC, I played the last 2 years on Xbox. And so I have 2019 and 2020 on Xbox, but 2019 is available on Game Pass now. So in 2020 it was actually available on Stadia as a free program. So I have it. I have 2020 on Stadia. 2019 is now on Game Pass. So I had been wanting to play that game on PC, so I finally got a chance to play it. For you know, racing fans who don't remember. We've gone through a couple iterations now of, you know, how Codemasters, you know, now owned by Electronic Arts, has been trying to put the Formula 2 season as kind of your pre-season or warm-up to getting up to Formula 1. And so this was the first year, I think, that the franchise put that mode in there. And so you start the season off in Formula 2. There's some weird kind of character-driven, story-oriented stuff in the beginning. I really liked, you know, when I played that game originally on Xbox, I really liked how they wove those elements into it. But and this is the thing I generally don't like in racing games, or really any games. I don't like situational games where, like, they drop you into, like, a thing that's already in progress, and then tell you to, like my pet peeve in Call of Duty is being, you know, skill-based match made into a game that's already live, and like the leader or the other team already has like 8 or 9 kills. I hate that. By the same token, I don't like scenario-based games where, you know, they drop you into like halfway through a battle or something and say, oh, you know, this is the scenario. And the races are like that. They drop you into races that are already in progress for like the last 2 to 4 laps of the race and tell you, yeah, blah 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 happened and historically blah blah. So, but I was using the Thrustmaster eSwap X Pro, the new gaming controller that I reviewed a couple weeks ago. And had it. I also downloaded the Thrust Mapper app from the Microsoft Store on a PC, which I hadn't done that before. I had done that on the Xbox. Like the controller is great. I had swapped the sticks out for the concave short sticks, which is better for racing than kind of the taller convex sticks that I use for first-person shooters. I unlocked the trigger so that I had a longer distance of pull on the left and right trigger. Thing worked wonderfully. I actually did better than that game, better in the time that I spent with F1 2019 than I have historically done. So I won the Formula 2 championship, whereas I normally, you know, I placed well enough but not great. You know, and did some practice rounds in the first race. You know, got onto an F1 team. Did my whole research tree, so I've liked how they've crept that into the series. It plays out a lot like WRC and some of the other racing games now, where you can upgrade your car kind of based on spending resource points that you earn by running practice programs and performing in the game. So, you know, that framework is there, like it is in some other racing games, and it worked really well. The controller worked really well. I did great in the Formula 2 season. It did well. The practice programs in Formula 1 typically I've typically just never done well in. I run the practice program and then fail them, and then I'm like, well, I shouldn't have bothered playing the practice round. I should have just gone on and started at the back of the grid and run the race, whatever. So, but it worked well with the new controller. So I got into a lot more of kind of the role playing elements and the team management elements this time playing it through, which is something that I've never delved that deeply into. So it worked out well.
Nice.
Had a good time.
Nice. I was always amazed at how well Forza was constructed. I had never actually played any Forza Horizons until 4. And right before 4, I actually played The Crew 2. All right. Oh, fuck, man. So I played the original Crew, and it was fine. I actually enjoyed The Crew. And The Crew 2, everybody was like, yo, this is just some, like, fucking Forza knockoff, right? Forza Horizon knockoff. And I'm like, well, what do they mean? I've never played for. Holy shit, is it not a Forza Horizon knockoff? The Crew 2 has to be my worst game of whenever the fuck it came out. Because I think I got the Ultimate Edition, and what a piece of garbage. Anyway, I don't want to go on a tangent, but yes, then I played Forza Horizon 4, and it made me appreciate it even more because Forza Horizon 4 is corny as fuck sometimes, all right? I mean, the character models are stupid looking. I hate the fucking stupid wheel, the spinny wheel of prizes. I hate all that shit. I hate the stuntman competitions. I hate the fucking getting the likes and shit. No, I don't. But in retrospect, it's still so much better than the Crew 2. Like the Crew 2 felt like the instructions you get when you order a product straight from China. You know, and you just have to read that English that was just copy pasted right in Google Translate. You know, and that's what this game felt like. Like they took Forza Horizon 4 and just translated it and made a cheaper version of it. But yes, Forza Horizon 4 is actually a lot of fun to play, and it's beautiful looking.
Yeah, so Roguelite in the chat says savage. And so this is an interesting thing, unfortunately, and I'm a big racing game fan. Racing games don't get a lot of headline time except in certain circles. But what you talk about is kind of this evolution of the racing game over the years, right? Because what I said was, I'm fine if you just give me a bunch of cars and a bunch of tracks and stuff to unlock, right? You go back to, Hot Need for Speed, Hot Pursuit 2 on the PlayStation 2, and even some of the Need for Speed Underground games, right? And way back in the day, Need for Speed High Stakes, Porsche Unleashed, all those things were built around you race, you do well, you unlock new cars, you get access to new tracks. All the things that you talked about are all around this paradigm of the fact that doesn't really satisfy people anymore. And so there are these efforts to build all of these additional progression model frameworks into racing games, right? And I mean, I guess some of those things that you mentioned in Forza don't grate me that much because I've seen the progression, right? You really, from a historical aspect, you really go back to Project Gotham Racing. And in the very first Project Gotham Racing, I was the same way. Had just, dealt with cars, tracks. I get to Project Gotham Racing, and they go kudos. I'm like, what the flip is a kudo? I'm like, get that crap out of here. But, but starting then like each iteration and generation of racing game that's come along has added something different to the mix. And Forza Horizon 4, for all the goofiness, the thing you mentioned is one of the things that I, not necessarily look forward to, but I appreciate that additional kind of distraction or that bling. Right, there's all like the costume unlocks and the emotes. Like every game has emotes now. Like I'd be surprised if like some deep serious like flight sim or something doesn't come along with like pilot emotes or something in it. But but I get it. They're things to collect and things to.
Oh yeah, I do too. Yeah. I mean, it's fine. It didn't make it unplayable, but it was really like I don't know that I hadn't played a racing game in a long time, and I think that was kind of that vast difference from the games you mentioned, Need for Speed. I mean, shit, I hadn't played a racing game since probably the PS2, really, and there was none of that shit back then. And I came into this and there's a wheel and there's career mode and like I'm doing emotes when I win a race and I'm just like, what is it? What game is this? Because you could go in and if I showed you, a screenshot of that game, at times you wouldn't be able to. It could be Wheel of Fortune. Like if I showed you a screenshot of Need for Speed at any given time, you'd know it was Need for Speed. Anyway, I mean, it doesn't bother me. The way that they do it is okay. I know that you can buy more shit if you want to, but none of that really affects your core gameplay. It's not. It's a far cry from NBA 2K where they're forcing ads and basically making you gamble while you shoot some hoops. So no, there's a huge difference between those two. But it was just funny to see that progression, and I get it. They need to appeal. We're needy. We're needy. We want more shit to do, and that's fine. Let me bring up this agenda again, and so that's what we've been playing. Oh yes, the Wayback Machine, my favorite part of the show. We go back now to the year 2017 in July, and what we were playing way back then, and that's not too far away, so I can almost remember what I was playing back then. And I pre-ordered Resident Evil 7 on the PC back then because I was primarily a PC gamer. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I was sitting here terrified at night because that's how I play Resident Evil at night with the lights off. And I vividly remember my wife walking in on me quite a few times and scaring the shit out of me. And I don't know, like I just need to lock my door because my family is evil. And they will sneak up on me and they don't understand like with a headset certain sounds come through like hyper amplified, and other sounds don't. So I can't hear them creeping up to me. But then, if something slams or then it just shocks the hell out of you.
I'm right there with you. Whenever I play down here and I'm wearing headphones, a headset, or when I'm playing VR, I lock my door.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to, but then they're gonna think I'm watching porn. So this is what I have to go through. So maybe I need a sign that says not watching porn, just scared shitless. But yeah, no, the game has a good atmosphere. Resident Evil is the closest thing I can think of to a video game Stephen King novel. It always starts off normal scary where you have some mystery, your girlfriend goes missing, you go to investigate this place, there's creepy people, and pretty soon there's giant penis worms coming out of heads and crazy shit, just like Stephen King. I read half the book, and at the halfway point Stephen King's acid kicks in and he goes off into fucking no man's land, and that's what Resident Evil is. So I have a fond appreciation for the course that Capcom is taking Resident Evil 7 and now Village into, and I just remember being super excited pre-ordering that game back in July of 2017.
So what's your general feeling of this vector, right? Because so for many many years, and I still think to a certain extent. So Resident Evil 7 has been the only Resident Evil that I've liked since Resident Evil 2. I would say, I'll just go ahead and take the stand. My general feeling about Resident Evil to me only exists within Raccoon City. And as soon as you leave Raccoon City, I'm like, it's not Resident Evil anymore. Like, what are we doing? Now, Resident Evil 7 as a game, I loved, right, above many other games, and definitely above like every iteration of Resident Evil. But I think of it as like a standalone game, right? It's like the new vector for Resident Evil 7. I don't necessarily link it back in my head to Resident Evil 2. Now I know with the Village, there's this going to be this effort to kind of swerve the retcon the lore back into like the core Resident Evil thing. Whatever, that's fine. And I appreciate that because I'm a guy who because it was a like movie review assignment when I was writing for a website, who watched all of the Resident Evil movies
Oh
despite its
God.
pain. But
Ah,
my one little piece of enjoyment, once you got past like the second Resident Evil movie, was just like the characters, right, who popped up, even if they were only in name, right, they weren't like the
sure.
same thing they were in the video game. But I appreciated, the geek fandom, fan
Mhm.
service of having a character from the series pop up right in the movie. Um, so, I mean, what do you feel about seven and now as we're heading, towards eight?
And that's a good thing to discuss because I feel like much like you do, where Resident Evil to me was one and two, right? It was Raccoon City. This to me is Resident Evil only in name. However, it's so well done and it's such a good game that I don't mind them just using Resident Evil just to sell the thing because that's what it is, right? I mean, they just use Resident Evil and they have some ties, of course, back to, they give you that fan service like they did in the movies. But it's in that Resident Evil universe, kinda, I mean, it is. But I would love to see them take this full circle almost and go back somehow to, Raccoon City in some way in first person, with this engine that they have, because I think that would be cool as shit. And maybe not even like maybe a present day Raccoon City. It doesn't have to be a prequel or anything, and it doesn't have to go back in time, and it could be new characters. But I would love to see them kind of. So that's why I'm excited for Village to see how, I think they're going to lay some framework for this to happen. I think maybe nine or whatever the fuck they end up calling it may see us back in Raccoon City or may see us. I mean, they have the story there. It was a solid story. One and two was good, story wise. And then, like you said, it just ventured off. And pretty soon, I mean, I stopped caring the second that, like I was in some village somewhere with zombie villagers. I don't even know what the fuck I was doing there, but all the Resident Evil games um, were solid enough to play that I think that outlasted the fact that the story was nonsensical after Resident Evil 2. And people can argue that up and down. I don't give a fuck. Raccoon City was where Resident Evil was, and I think finally in 7 they almost came to terms with it, right? They were just like, let's stop trying to tie this back to anything at all, and let's just make a good game and slap Resident Evil on there and see how it does. Because that's what it felt like to me, and it was initially disappointing. You're not wrong. Like initially, I launched 7, and I'm like, this has nothing to do with Resident Evil at all, right? I mean, but then I got sucked in. It was a good game. It freaked me out, and it felt Resident Evil-ish, and it is what it is. So, I think they're just taking the slow approach and the path of most money towards the longevity of this. So maybe by like 2028, we're gonna see Resident Evil 12 in Raccoon City as a first person survival horror. But yeah, no, Resident Evil is always one of my favorites until they sincerely just fuck it up and release. I mean, it would have to be, epic levels of shit in order for it to ruin Resident Evil for me. Because I've played all sorts of Resident Evils that were not even that great, and I still like them. So I'm kind of like a Resident Evil junkie, I guess. But yeah, no, that's what I was playing back in July 2017. Many changes of pants later, I did finish it. What were you playing in July of 2017?
Well, by strange coincidence, I was actually still playing Formula One, F1 2017, that year.
What?
Yeah, in this, I talk about this on the other podcast. And way back in the day, like I was a big sports fan, so I would have like multiple installments of like Madden right on different systems, and further back in the day, I was a big NHL fan, and so I had multiple right iterations. And this is one of those franchises that I often forget that like I've played like every instance, like we talk and we complain, and we've complained over the years about like the Call of Duty annualization, and I'm like, oh, wait a second, I've actually bought and played like every year's like version of MLB The Show, right? But you don't think about it until I'm like looking at the screen and I can see like these 4, 5, 6 different versions of the game. So, but yeah, I've been a long Codemasters fan. It's actually kind of a little sad now that they're going to be under that EA umbrella. If they don't maintain.
I want to say your goodbyes.
Right. It'll be interesting to see. It's always interesting. When you take a studio like Codemasters and put them behind a company backed by billions of dollars of revenue to see if they become something more, or if they just get distilled down into making very sterile and non-innovative products. But so to me, the tale of the tape is maybe even less so about what the 2017 experience was. Fans of Formula One know that one of the big things is it's experiencing the different technology in Formula One. If you're a Formula One fan, you know that every year they make these rule changes generally that invoke significant sometimes changes to how the cars are engineered. We then see those technologies trickle down. I think you're starting to see variants of like the KERS system, which is a system that basically takes the kinetic energy that you generate under braking and shunts that to a battery that you can then use to be additive to horsepower in the car. There's and I think there's a new system now that takes energy during turning or something like that. But these technology advances, and over this time also we've seen them go from V10s down to V8s. That causes a bunch of changes. But game wise, what we've seen is exactly the thing I mentioned before, right? Is this progression? Some of it's good, some of it's not. Like I mentioned, in F1 2019, you had the Formula 2 season, and that was great. And actually, those story elements that I talked about in F1 2019 were welcome additions to a franchise that has historically not had anything like pimp your house or whatever, like you have in the NBA modes, or the superstar thing that you have in Maiden, where you take over like the life of an individual player. But we see that get injected. But also, in F1 2017, you don't necessarily have all the things that they've been feeding into the game now, which is now the game has essentially the equivalent of a season pass. It has a store. It has cosmetic unlocks, right? But along with that, right, you also have a create your team mode in F1 2020. So 2017, when I go back to my memories and thoughts of playing that game, it was a lot more of kind of what I said before. It was pick a team, race, perform. There was, we had started to get into the career mode where you had some challenges. And actually, what I'll say about the overall franchise is there was a lot in 2017 that was very abrupt. I mean, so Formula One is kind of a very dispassionate, arrogant sport as it is, right? It's very much about individuals. We say it's about teamwork, but there's a lot of snooty, snotty people. I mean, even fans of Formula One are snooty and snotty. And so, a lot of the challenges that they put in your face back in those days of F1 were very abrasive. Like I mentioned, those training programs that you would like. Those training programs, I could never complete any of them, right? In the early years of them weaving it, like I would race them, I would almost always fail them, and then I would just feel like, why the hell am I doing this? And I would just stop doing the training program, which are really designed to be challenges that you are given in the practice sessions of the race to get you familiar with the track and have you work on foundational skills that you can apply in qualifying and racing. And they were so difficult and so challenging back then that they were just useless. And we also talk about, these types of challenges that games throw up in front of you that, just like we used to say back in the old days, like the game's cheating, right? But basically, you kind of go to like the way Doom Eternal, ramp, challenges at you. Like they didn't really like make the AI smarter. They just made the enemies faster, right? And so it got to a point where like it just exceeded your ability to like track the target, right? That's not a challenging video game, right? In my opinion. So, there were things like that back then, and so over these years, what I remember is, as you go from 2017 to 18, 19, 20, you get these small improvements where, these things that they're adding to the game are actually worthwhile, right, and useful. So, 2017, it was a little more abrasive time, and I probably didn't spend a ton of time with that game, but I did buy it on the PC. I did spend some time playing it. As I do apparently almost every year. As I go back to my Steam account,
you're a racing game addict.
Yeah, well, and that I've always known. I get surprised, and I did this, when we talked about the Dirt series as well, because of all the controversy around Dirt 5, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm familiar with the Dirt series. I've played. Oh, wait a second. I've actually played every version of Dirt.
7,000 hours of Dirt.
Right.
I have seen all the tracks everywhere. Now, so, what I realized is, just a tiny bit off topic before we get to the controversy of the day, is I think the worst job in the world would probably be a spotter in a rally car. Because we were talking about this, and we were watching a video, and this dude was going through, this terrain. And just, you got split second, decisions. And the driver is skilled. But the fact that the spotter is not just vomiting the entire time as he's like reading a map and shit, all right, just is beyond me. This poor guy must not have an equilibrium at all. Because I was almost thrown up just thinking about being that spotter. So props to any spotters doing rally races or whatever the fuck you're doing. I don't know how you do it, but it's insanity.
Yeah, definitely not a career choice for people with like inner ear and balance problems, right?
Probably just I can't even spin around in an office chair without getting dizzy. And this guy's like reading a map, looking at shit, and then also able to speak to the driver. And what? No.
Back when I, like I said, when I used to live stream a lot, like it was always funny. When you play that Dirt series, and generally you get like the navigation recommendations and updates. You get a couple at a time, right? Every few seconds. But like there's parts of the track where like the spotter starts talking and he just gives you directions straight. You're on a crappy part of a track when he's just like continuously talking for like a full minute.
Yes.
And he's like,
it's insane. It's insane. That's a real human sitting there doing what? Anyway, yeah, no, I watched the video and it just made me appreciate that. That just sounds like the shittiest fucking job on earth. All right. Well, speaking of the shittiest jobs on earth, apparently I don't have anything for controversies, but apparently Sony just makes the shittiest controllers on the planet, shittier than any other controller ever. And I think that's good enough hyperbole for this topic. And our controversy of the week is the PS5 DualSense drifting issue that I believe now is a class action lawsuit based on what I've read. And I'm not going to give my opinion right off the bat because it's going to be a strong one. So I'm going to hand it off to you and ask, what you're thinking here. This is your topic. How do you want to go about this?
So it's going to be interesting to see if we take the same sides, because I don't know that we will. So
okay.
My problem with this controversy of the week was all the people that, I will say, jumping in front. All the Sony fanboys who rushed to the aid to try and defend the Sony brand and slag GameSpot for making an article that was clickbaity. Now, my stance on it... So first of all, I read the article, read it, not just read the headline, and then did my hot take on Twitter, like 99% of everybody else did. So first of all, I don't know that anything that was stated in the article was incorrect. I saw a lot of comments, and the comments that jumped out to me the most that have stuck with me is the guy who said, well, one person isn't a class action lawsuit. Go to law school, right? Study what class action lawsuit means, right? The number of people who bring the case, like that was a soundbite in the article. That's not what it is. If the thing was filed as a class action lawsuit, it's a class action lawsuit, right? And apparently from the other comments in the article, what I believe, like, well, first of all, just think about the type of society we live in America. If 100 people are asked, do you have joystick drift, right, or controller drift, we're filing a class action lawsuit, whether they actually have drift or not, right? Some number of those people are going to say that they do have drift. It's been one of the, first of all, there's always been controller dissonance in the experience, right? This is what has led us, who have been lifelong gamers, to constantly scream in frustration at Maiden when we go, but I was hitting the circle button, right? You were doing something that you were convinced in your mind that should have been an input to the game, that wasn't. That has increased as we've gone from wired to wireless, and that's increased as we've introduced analog joysticks, right? It's just the way humans experience, input systems, right? So the fact that the article mentioned that, the class action lawsuit was filed on behalf or was brought because of, like, the one person it named, doesn't mean it's not a class action lawsuit. The other thing that jumped out at me and that I found funny was all of the anecdotal statements, right? Well, I played 100 hours on my DualSense and I haven't had a problem.
Fine.
Therefore, the entire article...
No one has issues with it.
Right. Like, we've talked about this time and time again. You can't quote your anecdotal evidence, your individual experience, right? I've used my controllers and haven't experienced... quite frankly, the only game controller drift I've actually experienced has been with my Joy-Cons, right? And all of my others have been fine. That's also partially probably because I have multiple controllers for every system that I own, and I never use one controller all the time. I'm constantly shifting and changing them up, so I don't put the same number of operating hours, right, that would trigger a lot of those things. The other thing, so the other comment I'll make about the article is, I didn't consider the article, I just considered the article as a repost, right? So people flipped out about the titling of the article and what GameSpot said in the article. I felt what was the most important thing about the article was the posting of the iFixit video. And so, so part of me is going to say, so we're not trusting iFixit now, right? For all the people who are jumping in front. I personally do. I think those guys do a good job. I don't know that there's any more authoritative of a source on the web when it comes to hardware and hardware teardowns than iFixit. So I actually watched that entire video, which is about 6 minutes. Guarantee you most of the people who were jumping in front didn't watch the video all the way through and actually listen to what the guy said. The guy said they've done the analysis and they found the root cause, right? So again, what was said mostly in the GameSpot article was exactly what the guy said in the video. I don't think that's really refutable, right? And what he puts at the center of it is the fact that everybody uses the same core module across the DualSense, the DualSense controller, the Elite Series controller from Xbox, the Pro controller by Nintendo, and actually the PS4 controller as well. And what he comments on is it's not necessarily inherently the fault of the module, but in some ways it's a lot of what people do with the module afterwards, right? The fact that they solder all types of additional wiring and harness and touch points and connection points onto the module that make it difficult to break it down and repair. And so the takeaway that I took from the commentary in the video was that, look, if you have this problem, particularly with the DualSense controller, it's going to be a thing for you to send that back to Sony and expect them to repair it. You're probably just in the mode where you probably just need to go buy another controller, which is what I would do anyway. I just don't necessarily think... My feelings on hardware, it's kind of like if I have a controller that gets into that, it's to me it's like the car that rolls off the assembly line on a Friday afternoon or comes off the assembly line first thing Monday morning. Those are generally units that are going to have problems their entire lifetime, and you're probably unlikely to eke those things out. So then they talked about operating hours, and they said, look, just over 400 operating hours, right? There is a statistical chance that you will start to experience these problems. Now, in some cases, I'm not. That one of the reasons is because they mentioned, how internal dust and debris can get inside the controller. One of the things I do with my controllers is I don't have them out unless I'm actually using them. I tend to keep them inside boxes or cases. So, whether or not you're going to experience it or not is going to depend. But the main thing is that if you listen to the video, the person didn't say this is because of bad Sony design or this is because of Sony negligence, right? He just said, look, everybody's using these core modules. The entire industry has settled on this being the lowest replaceable unit LRU that people are going to use. It has these characteristics, and so the chances of you hitting those problems are there regardless of which controller you're using is basically what he's saying. So everybody didn't need to jump in front to try and defend Sony's. Again, it's a multi-billion-dollar company. They don't need you to defend them, right? Their revenue is not going to be impacted by this article that talks about DualSense drift. It just says, hey, if anybody had paid any attention or applied common sense, they would have realized that anybody who's using these modules is going to be subject to drift. And then again, they call out all the modules that use them. I don't know. Did you have a different take on it?
I read the article. I didn't watch the whole video, but I read the article, and then I read kind of the teardown of the Alps, controller module deal. And I'm very familiar with shit like that in PC building. I mean, it is what it is. Alps has been around forever. They do all sorts of touchpads and clickety things. And what's funny is, so yes, you get 417 hours or whatever the fuck it was, right? And this is based on, like Call of Duty or whatever that they ended up using, like Warzone. And I could see how that number right off the bat would be like, holy shit, that's, what did they say? Like 8 months of usage at 2 hours a day. Okay. Mind you, that this just means that you will have some type of drift. Some type of drift. It could be not even a big issue. That's the thing, right? I mean, I'd say that most people out there have some sort of drift on their controllers and never fucking notice because your body adapts quite well to this. And under normal circumstances, most people would never notice a slight drifting of a controller. Uh, I think people that look for it will
might even
find
notice it, but not like feel like it was anything.
No, I have drift
Kentucky
on several
windage.
controllers.
Right?
Yeah. I drove around with a cracked windshield for like 5 years. All right, and the crack went right through my line of sight. It was invisible after year one. I was like, I'll definitely replace it. I'm like, I'll replace it at some point. You know what? What crack? What are you talking about? So your mind will actually compensate for that drift most of the time. If you search for a problem, you will find it. There are always going to be problems. There's going to be dead pixels. There's going to be, scratches and things and products because they're made by at the cheapest price to get the biggest profit, sometimes by humans or by machines operated by humans, and go through some quality control, but every product can't be perfect. So again, you're talking, this is the unit that they choose. Obviously it works well for all these manufacturers. However, this problem with drift, it's going to come to a point where I don't know where these class action lawsuits will go, but I mean, we're all going to get like $1.50 is what the end result of this shit's going to be. But I mean, controllers are the DualSense is a pricey piece of hardware, so I get it. Like $69.99, I think, is the retail for it, which is more than any other controller, except the Joy Cons, which are really two controllers. So I don't know how you want to price it out, but maybe they'll decide to. I don't know that this is a technical limitation, or maybe they'll decide to put in a hardier, um, touch, whatever the fuck you call that, trigger analog stick controller in upcoming controllers, or maybe they'll lower controller pricing. I don't know that you're going to have a magic fix to this, though. It almost becomes a consumable, right? I mean, your controller is gonna need to be replaced. It is what it is. It's not the NES anymore. Where yeah, I don't
And,
know.
and I feel that's really, like, again, people like flip the heck out because they felt like somebody was attacking Sony, and I'm like, no, that's, I think, as you mentioned, right, what's really at the heart of this is other critical issues, right? And the question is why does everybody use that controller? And if there's a rational reason why that's the case, then that's great. But if the reason is that Alps gained a certain degree of market share and then just, made a bunch of deals with controller manufacturers, with console manufacturers, so that they basically drove competitors out of the business, that's a problem, right? I mean,
Right.
we should
Yeah.
definitely, somebody, should definitely kind of take a look. We do a class action lawsuit, that's great. Somebody needs to pull the monopoly cord, right, and see if that's a problem.
I think that's the bigger issue,
Right,
really. I mean,
because the question well, if this is an endemic problem, then why hasn't there been innovation in the industry, right, that has
right.
solved that problem? It's apparently been going on for a long time. It's not rocket science, and it's clear, right? But then the other thing is, and I think they mentioned this in the thing, it's like, you know, you know, consumers should demand, again, while you're spending all your energy jumping in front of the multi-billion-dollar company trying to defend them, maybe you should start using your voice and clamor for those for those things being built, controllers being built, in a way that would allow those things to be replaced. And so if that's a high
Yes.
failure unit,
Yes.
then maybe making it modular in a way that those things can be replaced would be good. Um, and or like you mentioned, I don't know that controller prices are going to come down, but it would certainly be nice to have an option to buy like a $10 or $20 per year or something, like game controller replacement warranty package or
Yeah.
something when you bought your controller. If it's a high failure unit, fine. Help us do something that addresses that issue.
And another part of me comes with sustainability. That's a lot of plastic too. That's a lot of shit. So why not environmentally, make those analog, sticks replaceable? That would be amazing. I'm sure it's feasible to some extent. It might make the controller even more expensive. I'm thinking this is an ROI thing, but the fact that Alps is the only one being used, that's my first cause of concern. And are there other people making anything? Is there some shady shit going on with Alps and all these manufacturers? Can we have some different options? Yes, there are different options in the controller space, but most people will never see them. And you're either going to buy the official controller or you're going to buy some Power A off market bullshit that's cheaper. I mean, most people will not buy a more expensive controller. Those sales are insignificant in the scheme of things. So, and it disappoints me really when you spend on an elite controller, you spend $200 and it comes with the same fucking Alps component as the $60, $50 controller. That's bullshit. So, maybe this will, I think there's a conversation to be had here. It's not one of jumping in front and defending Sony. Sony will be targeted because they're the market leader. Period. Plain and simple. I mean, the Joy Cons had an issue with the distance and losing connectivity. I had to send my Joy-Con back to get it fixed, and I got it fixed. But there when these issues I'm glad consumers have more of a voice in this. I don't think it's bad to expect more from a device that costs that much. So go ahead, expect more. Don't defend those companies, though. I mean, all you're going to do is prompt them to just continue with giving you you know, a product that may have a superior choice out there, but that they're not going to give to you because they know you'll just buy another controller, right? So go ahead, take that initiative and do your thing, but But yeah, no, I don't jump in front of buses for any multi-billion-dollar corporation. It's not gonna happen. My ass stays home. And yeah, no.
I tell you what it does. What it did do is it's prompted me, and I've had it in the back of my head, but I haven't really moved it to the forefront of my you know you know system recapitalization. My purchase plan or whatever. But I have been contemplating for a while to look at getting an Xbox adaptive controller. Because the modularity of that and being able to pick and choose things, like I said, I have kind of sort of some minor carpal tunnel and my hands fatigue, pretty much more quickly now than they did when I was younger when I'm gaming, and I it's good that I shift periodically to different controllers, across the different systems because I definitely feel, some fatigue, some slight injury from from repetitive muscular actions, with inputs. But I've been giving a lot more thought to getting the Xbox adaptive controller, which gets you a base and then allows you to kind of tailor and select from a catalog of components in how you want to build your overall control scheme, which in a lot of ways kind of makes it similar to what we enjoy on the PC, right? Our ability to pick and choose controller and input peripherals specific to our liking. So this issue has moved that sharply to the front. I'm gonna, while I'm just trying to get the stinking media remote, PlayStation 5 media remote, and DualSense dual charger, which are never in stock, right?
No, I'm glad I got one because apparently it's like gold.
Yeah. I did get a hold of a Pulse headset. Which that's
Nice,
the only thing.
nice.
But the media remote, it seems like such a small thing, but it really pains me to have to pick up my controller.
Yep.
To just navigate the UI on my PlayStation 5 when all I want to do is go to the store or pull up a video streaming service or something. But yeah, it's definitely pushed to the forefront. My thoughts and consideration of getting that Xbox adaptive controller. So I will probably be targeting that and moving out on it.
And that'll give you a bunch more options too, and that's standard too. So you could get shit from a vast selection market of places for the adaptive controller. I haven't actually seen one in real life yet. I've only seen videos and products, advertisements for it. I think this will come to a head, right? With people, they will game more, and gaming is taking off, and I think they're just kind of, they've been relying on people just buying a controller or getting a new gen of console, getting a new console, getting a replacement controller. But at $69, I think it may have just come to the head where people are like, this should last more than 400 hours, and I believe so. I believe it should last more than so. From now on, what I'm going to do to extend that to 600 hours is that after I'm done playing my PS5, I'm going into a vacuum chamber and I'm going to blow out everything. And then I'm going to vacuum seal my controller, all right, with a food saver and just store it until the next time I play it. I'm sure I could double the life of that.
Or just turn your RGB lights on your new PC. I heard that gives you more
exactly. Exactly. You may see more PC games in my playlist very soon. They may be 15-year-old MMOs, but they may be PC games.
So Max NPV in the chat. First of all, thank you very much for swinging through and listening to the podcast. But says flashback to the Atari 2600 controller. It would crack. It would crack playing Epic's summer game. Fixed it with duct tape. And yeah, so controllers.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I had a Magnavox Odyssey 2. It had plastic nubs on the top of the metal posts on the joystick, and those would always crack and break off, and you would be moving your band with the metal post.
With the metal stick, yeah.
So they're kind of sort of always. I think what we will definitely see is, as you mentioned, I think people will be more conscious about this, and even if I think what will happen is, first of all, every time now that there is a problem reported that makes it into the news feed that is about a controller, there will be some blurb in that article that will indicate whether or not it's using that same Alps component or something different. And I also think, the next time that, we'll probably see it this generation, but the next time that there is an upgrade or an increment or improvement, right, on the Xbox One, we did 3 SKUs of the Xbox controller. right. So there was the original one. Then there was, I think there was one that shifted to the use of a Bluetooth transmitter, I think, and then there was the change in the audio. The ones that you no longer require the audio channel, and then there was, I think, a fourth shift after the Elite series controller came out to adopt some of the same technology that I was using. So I think if we see another mid-generation, upgrade or new SKU that is supposed to be an improvement on the original controller, again, I think consumers and the media will be much more conscious about saying, well, yes, they're charging you $70 for that new variant of the controller, but it's still using that same Alps.
And they will.
Stick.
They will. So, and they have about 7 billion of those Alps in boxes. So, again, when Resident Evil 12 comes out in 2028, we will have new thingamabobbies in our controllers. I guarantee it. Mark my words.
You don't think they're going to take all the worldwide back stock of those analog joystick components and put them out in the same landfill with the ET cartridges?
Maybe. Or they're gonna melt them all down and just make more consoles out of them or something. I mean, I don't know, but they got a stock of those things, and now they're just like, I fix it, you motherfuckers. What have you done?
That's the fix to the great console shortage of Generation 9, right?
Oh man, hey, we got through all of our items on time. This is good. It was a good show. Thanks everybody that stopped by and chat. We got a bunch of people today. That's awesome. That's always nice to see. I can't read chat because I have ADD. So I have so many windows open, I can barely function as it is. So thank you for reading the chat, man, and keeping up with that. Because if I have that open, then I get distracted, then I forget, and I start taking off clothes because I get too comfortable and I forget I'm on video. But this was a great show. Again, this is The Internet Needs to Calm the Hell Down. This was episode number 15. Yeah, 15. Wow. Yeah, and we've been doing this for a few months now, and we get together on Monday nights. Usually when my work doesn't interrupt my fun, and we hope to see you next Monday at around the same time in the same place, man. You got anything else to add?
Just before we get out, I'll say thank you everybody who swung through the chat and hung out for the live stream and the podcast. Thank you, Rolite Pack. Thank you, Elitaro72. Thank you, Mokawama. And thank you, Max MPV. Rolite Pack says, thanks for the show, guys.
Thanks, guys. We appreciate you.
All right, man. Are we out?
Yeah. Yeah. We're out of here. Right. I was just go home, people. You can't stay here. Go, leave. Go do your shit.
All right, that'll do it for us. We'll see you next time. Same place, same channel.
Peace out, guys.